What are laser scanners, how do they work, and how to set them up correctly? In the laser display industry, scanners are used to reflect or scan the laser beam in required directions and along programmed paths, resulting in projecting points, lines, or shapes called laser effects. In this video, we'll discuss a typical scanning set consisting of 2 galvanometer motors, also called scanners. Each galvo has a shaft with a small reflection mirror attached to it. The entering beam is scanned where we want it by the galvo tilting the mirror to the desired position following the instructions from the control software. Each scanner operates its axis. We use an X-axis horizontal movement scanner and a Y-axis vertical movement scanner. Each can scan the beam along a single axis only, vertically or horizontally. But by working together, they can cover 2-dimensional space. Because the laser beam travels forward into space, the projection becomes 3-dimensional. With some help from programming, smoke and haze, or special projection screens, the 3D illusion can become near perfect. It is essential to understand that every scanned laser effect projected from a single laser projector always originates from a single source point. The scanners create points, lines and shapes by relatively reflecting that single beam in the desired positions. What are laser effects made of and how are they projected? A point, which is a single beam, is the most basic element of laser projection. Creating a visible point at the center position is simple. Scanners are set to their 0 positions and the laser emission is turned on. How do we get 2 visible points at 9 and 3 o'clock? We tell the scanners to go from the 0 position to the left to A, stop there, turn the laser on, turn the laser off, go to the right to B, turn the laser on and turn the laser off. Repeating this for as long as the effect is required. These moves between A and B happen along a path also defined by points. However, unlike points at A and B, they are blank, meaning the laser is turned off when scanners follow them. The number of points at A and B defines how much time the scanner spends at those positions and how bright those points are. More points means a brighter projection. By adding more points to the visible and blank elements, we also increase the precision of the scanning as the scanner is forced to follow scanning paths more accurately. Now let's create a line. In this case, we are doing the same as with A and B, except the laser stays switched on for the whole time. Points again define the line between A and B. However, setting the number of points and their distancing within the line or shape will determine how the projected line will look. It can be smooth or, for example, with a few brighter points along the path. The last element to go through is a shape. Let's say we wanted to project a capital D letter that can be described as a line and a curve. We know how the line is made. We go from A to B while the laser is on. For the curve, we go from B to A, but here the importance of the number of points within curves becomes high. More points on that curve will result in a nicer, more rounded shape. Creating a circle with 4 points will logically result in a square. Doing it with 20 points will get you a polygon of some sort. Curves may have some more points to achieve the desired results. A circle is usually made of 100+ points. Every static laser effect typically consists of a single frame, whereas moving effects, essentially animations, consist of several frames set on a timeline. How is the performance measured and what are the scanner's limits? Due to scanner mechanics, there are limits to what they can do, or better yet, how much they can display at one time. The main limiting factor is the scanning speed. Different scanners can perform at different maximum speeds and angles. The maximum scanning speed is described in points per second at a certain scanning angle. So, for example, you would hear that these scanners can do 30 kpps at 8 degrees, meaning 30,000 scanning points per second if the scanning speed angle is no more than 8 degrees. Please note that the number 30,000 represents the maximum number of scanning points, and not the geometrical points you would use to create an element in the programming software. In geometry, we would define a square with 4 points. The laser effect design software will use those points as the main anchor points and then add more points to all connecting abscisses. How many scanning points are added to each part of the shape depends on the software, effect queue, or frame settings. It is now clear that the scanners must move super fast to project points, lines, or shapes looking static without any flicker. If we can scan a line slowly, we see a dot going from one side to another repeatedly. To see a solid line, we have to increase the scanning speed considerably. Humans need to see any picture at least 20 times per second to perceive it as static. That is our refresh rate. In our laser terms, that picture is called a frame. To see the single line static or solid, the scanner must redraw the line from side to side at least 20 times per second. If it is less than that, let's say 15 times per second, we still see the line, but it flashes or flickers as we call it. Following this and going back to what we said before, to project a nice flicker-free circle made of 100 scanning points, it has to be scanned 20 times per second, which equals 2,000 points per second. That means that with 30 kpps scanners, we can do about 14 circles like that at a maximum 8-degree scanning angle. The exemplary 8-degree projection angle on short distances is pretty narrow though. Increasing that scanning angle while maintaining the scanning speed will force us to lower the number of projected circles. That's if we want to keep the flicker-free projection. A wider scanning angle means longer journeys between points, or more points and more time necessary to complete them, which equals a lower refresh rate and more flicker. Most scanners are set to have a maximum scanning angle of 50 to 60 degrees, and while an 8-degree scanning angle doesn't sound like much, it's all about the distance between a projector and the projection surface. Depending on the power of a laser projector, scanning from greater distances might compensate for increasing the scanning angle beyond the necessary extent. Another important aspect is how the scanners move between individual points, lines, and shapes within a single frame. Each line and shape has its starting and ending point, and although the laser is switched off, or as we say, blanked, when moving between points, lines, and shapes, the scanners have to do that movement. These moves between the ending position of one shape and the starting position of another are performed along blank lines, which are also defined by scanning points and must be included in the total number of each frame's scanning points. If the software allows the user to control the starting and ending points and scanning direction, adjusting those can dramatically affect the scanner's performance. However, any modern control software will automatically optimize and enhance the paths of every frame and between frames for the best possible results. There are a few more things to remember. Circular and curvy shapes are less demanding on scanners because the directional changes are not quick and sharp, whereas shapes with sharp corners require scanners to slow down to perform that sharp change of direction. Ultimately, the most challenging object for scanners to scan is a square grid. The number of points in geometric shapes determines how precisely they are scanned. While lines can be made with fewer middle points, curves require more points for adequate results. How to set the scanning speed correctly? Usually, the scanner speed can be set in general settings, but also per each effect and even per frame. In general, you aim to set the scanner speed to the highest possible while ensuring the scanned effect shows no signs of distortion. Distortion is when lines are not straight, corners are not sharp but curvy, and circles become elliptical. It's when the whole projection becomes slightly blurry, looking like underwater. If any of those are present, you push your scanners beyond their limits. Although not recommended, it is usually fine if the scanner speed is exceeded for a very short period, maybe during a few frames within an animation, but it should never last for more than a couple of seconds. To get the most out of your scanners without damaging them, it is essential to understand how they work and consider the projection content before and during their creation. Find the best way to achieve what you want with the fewest scanning points possible. What happens when you force the scanners beyond their limits? The forces of the variable magnetic field spin the scanner shaft, rotating the magnet inside the cavity. The analog control signal from the laser control interface goes to the scanner driver, which sends current to the motor. The amount of current depends on the scan angle, the projection size, and frequency, or scanner speed. More current means more heat is generated on the coil and magnet inside the cavity. If the magnet's temperature exceeds 120 degrees Celsius, it permanently loses its magnetic attraction and the scanner stops working. Unfortunately, this means damage beyond repair. Please note these two general relations. If you double the scan angle, you will increase heat inside the scanner by a factor of 4. If you double the scan frequency, you will increase the heat inside the scanner by a factor of 16. This shows how reducing the scan speed just a little can have a pretty dramatic effect on the heat inside the scanner. A good amount of practice and knowledge is essential for knowing the correct way and all the tricks for producing quality content optimized for particular scanners.